Today we're going to read a story that is an AR book. It is a 2.7 book and it is worth 0.5 points. The story today is written by James Marshall and Harold Allard. The story is Miss Nelson is Missing. The kids in room 207 were misbehaving again. Spitballs stuck to the ceiling. See them stuck up there. Paper planes whizzed through the air. They were the worst behaved class in the whole school. Wow. "Now settle down," said Miss Nelson in a sweet voice. But the class would not settle down. They whispered and giggled. They squirmed and made faces. Blah. They were even rude during story hour. Man, they're just not sitting down, are they? They're supposed to be sitting down for story time, huh? And they always refuse to do their lessons. "Something will have to be done," said Miss Nelson. The next morning, Miss Nelson did not come to school. "Wow!" yelled the kids. "Now we can really act up." They began to make more spitballs and paper planes. "Today, let's just be terrible," they said. "Not so fast," hissed an unpleasant voice. Wonder who that's going to be. They could see that Miss Swamp was a witch. She meant business. Right away, she put them to work, and she loaded them down with homework. "We'll have no story time today," said Miss Swamp. "Keep your mouths shut," said Miss Swamp. "Sit perfectly still," said Miss Swamp. "And if you misbehave, you'll be sorry," said Miss Swamp. Days went by and there was no sign of Miss Nelson. The kids missed Miss Nelson. Do you remember who Miss Nelson is? Some of you guessed it. Miss Nelson was their teacher. The kids in room 207 had never worked so hard. Wow, Miss Swamp is really getting them to work. Maybe we should try to find her," they said. Some of them went to the police. Detective Mr. Smog was assigned to the case. He listened to their story. He scratched his chin. He said. "I think Miss Nelson's missing." Detective Smog would not be much help. I think they called him Mr. Smog because of his pipe, bunch of smoke all up in the air. Other kids went to Miss Nelson's house. The shades were tightly drawn and no one answered the door. In fact, the only person they did see was the wicked Miss Viola Swamp coming up the street. "If she sees us, she'll give us more homework." They got away just in time. Maybe something terrible happened to Miss Nelson. "Maybe she was gobbled up by a shark," said one of the kids. But that didn't seem likely. Yeah, I don't think she got eaten by sharks either. Maybe Miss Nelson went to Mars, said another kid. But that didn't seem likely either. It'd be very hard to go up there to Mars. I know, exclaimed one of the know-it-all. Maybe Miss Nelson's car was carried off by a swarm of angry butterflies. But that was the least likely of all. I don't think butterflies can carry the car away. The kids in room 207 became very discouraged. It seemed that Miss Nelson was never coming back, and they would be stuck with Miss Viola's swamp forever. They heard footsteps in the hall. Here comes the witch, they whispered. Children, someone said in a sweet voice. Who do you think says that? Hello, children, and a sweet voice. Do you remember who has a sweet voice? It was Miss Nelson. Did you miss me? She asked. We certainly did, cried all the kids. Where were you? That's my little secret, said Miss Nelson. How about a story hour? Oh, yes, cried the kids. Miss Nelson noticed that during story hour, no one was rude or silly. What brought about this lovely change? She asked. That's our little secret, said the kids. Back home, Miss Nelson took off her coat and hung it in the closet right next to an ugly black dress. When it was time for bed, she sang a little song. I'll never tell, she said to herself in a smile. What will she never tell? Let's see, she took off her coat and put it next to a black dress. Do you remember who was wearing a black dress? Can we look back here? Let's see if I can find who's wearing a black dress. It's Miss Nelson. She was Miss Viola. Look, it's the black dress. She even has cheeks like Miss Nelson. Let's go back to where I stopped off at. See? Cheeks like Miss Nelson. So, Miss Viola Swamp was Miss Nelson in disguise. She was wearing a costume. Do you know why she might have been wearing one? I think it's because the kids were acting up in school and they were not listening. They were not sitting still at story time. So she thought of a plan and she figured she'll try to act like a different person and dress like somebody else. Maybe they will just miss her instead. And that's what happened to the kids. They did miss her. Oh, and P.S., which means, oh, and by the way, Detective McSmog is working on a new case. He is now looking for Miss Viola Swamp. You think he's going to find her? We don't know. So again, the story is a 2.7 book, meaning it's 2nd grade, 7th month. Please make sure, those of you who are taking a test with this, make sure you read this at least 3 times. Then have somebody ask you questions about this book and make sure you pass that test. If you want to get 0.5 points, you have to get all your questions correctly. Right. This is pretty good book by James Marshall. I believe there's at least another book out there about Miss Nelson and her class. I will have to find that. Those of you who would like a certain book read, please comment below or message me through Facebook. I do have a Facebook page that relates to this YouTube channel, so please check the links below. Sometimes I do have items that I have handcrafted myself that relate with the books as well. So check out all the links below. Please make sure you click on follow my YouTube channel. Please like each of the videos that you do watch, and make sure you tell other people about this channel, that I will be putting more videos of other books that I will be reading out slowly. I mean, I'm doing at least 2 a week, and those of you who know who has kids or who has grandkids, you can tell teachers, anybody who takes care of children at some point of the day, please make sure you do tell them about my channel. And you guys, have a good evening. Bye now.